It's great to see everybody. It has been a busy, very fast summer, which I'm sure you can attest to. Things continue working here to be better. There's so much to be excited about. It's great to see everybody. This is kind of a peg in the sand day here today. We're starting new. We're starting new with leadership of a guy that many of you know as Lonnie. Many of you may know as Dr. Burnett. But today, he is President Burnett. And there's a significance to that. I'm so thankful on behalf of the Board of Trustees that Lonnie had the interest, the enthusiasm to dive into this position. And it's not one to be taken lightly. I can guarantee you that. I know that from experience. But Lonnie, I'm so proud of working with him over the last couple of months. He has jumped into this with both feet and with an enthusiasm and a love for this place that could not be found anywhere. And we are so thankful and so blessed that to have Dr. Burnett as president and serving. And there is so much to be excited about, so many positive things going on, and he will share those with you. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to President Dr. Lonnie Burnett.
Okay, drive safely. Thank you. No. Thank you, Fred. It is indeed an honor to be here today. We're going to talk Wednesday about budgets and policies, procedures. Then we'll see the applause on Wednesday. But today let's focus on that word purpose. Fred mentioned this, Todd mentioned this. This is a good time for the University of Mobile. I want to spend today in this convocation service talking about purpose. Our motto, which we use all over the place, is higher education for a higher purpose. That got me thinking, okay, if that's our motto, what then is our purpose? What does that mean? Our purpose was established early on. As a historian, I use documents. Here's a document. This is the Mobile Press Register. You used to have a daily paper in this town years ago. This is dated September the 1st, 1963. The headline was, New Mobile College to Open Doors, September the 9th. This was a special section taken out by business people to congratulate this new college. There's some kind of fun-filled facts on the first page. For example, we had 220 students. They were all freshmen. It was just one class. We would add a class each year for the next 4 years. We had one building, which was Weaver Hall. It cost $1 million. One building had just opened. The tuition was $15 per credit hour, or a block price for 17 hours at $225. The library occupied a small corner of one floor. That sounds familiar, actually. Too soon, sorry, too soon. The trustees had names we see on buildings now, names like Bedsole, Martin, Arundel, Farr, Samford. The business community, in this section, the business community took out small ads to congratulate the founders of this college. The funny thing was, almost every ad said things like, congratulations on the economic impact you'll have on this community. Or it might say, congratulations for bringing new education to this community. Very few said anything about the spiritual purpose of the college. I believe Dr. Weaver realized that, He took out the entire back page. And he said in here, it's a Christian college. He wanted to make sure that got put out there. This was a Christian college. It had a unique purpose. Now, here's the danger. If we're not careful, that phrase, Christian University or Christ-centered university, if we're not careful, that becomes just a marketing slogan that we kind of ignore. You know, I've often wondered, in this secular world in which we live, you know, we've banned things like prayer in public schools, we've banned Bible reading, displays on public property. I've often wondered, how is it we still get to use the phrase, "In God we trust," on our money? And I've wondered how we get to say things like "one nation under God" in our pledge. It's not because different groups have tried to stop it. In fact, some have. There was a court case in 1984 with just that purpose. This case went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. The case is called Lynch versus Donnelly. In that court case, which, by the way, the decision said you could indeed keep those phrases on the coins and in the pledge. But the reasoning I find fascinating, Justice Brennan wrote the opinion. He invoked the term ceremonial deism. Now, what that means, here's a quote. In talking about those phrases, he wrote, and I quote here, "They've lost through rote repetition any significant religious context." See what that means? It means, yes, you can do it because nobody believes it anyway. That's the official position of the court. They're just words with no purpose. That's the danger when we talk about purpose today. What I want to do briefly today is focus on three questions, and all of these relate to purpose. The first one is a basic question. Is there a need for a Christ-centered university? I've got to say yes. If you've watched the news in the last week, we've been bombarded with stories about active shootings, horrible situations. I did some research this morning, by the way. A mass shooting is defined for criminal statistics when 4 people, not counting the gunman, are shot. 4 people. Today is the 224th day of this year. This year, in this country, we have had 255 mass shootings, more than one per day. Does this nation need Christ-centered universities? Yes. One of the most troubling things I have seen recently, I saw last week. There's a company called Tuffy Pack, Tuffy Pack. They sell book bags. You can Google their website. Their best seller for elementary kids is a book bag with bulletproof inserts. God help us. That's the nation in which we live. On their website, there's diagrams showing elementary kids how to use that book bag as a shield in case of active shooters. Do we need Christ-centered education? You bet. I saw an article recently in the Wall Street Journal. Citigroup hired what they call an ethicist for their company. What does an ethicist do? The ethicist, when managers have questions about right and wrong, they call this person because they realized their managers could not discern, not legally, but ethically, right versus wrong. Do we need this? Yes, we do. Now, the problem is we don't need more education. That sounds kind of odd for a college to say. In America today, we have got 4,583 degree-granting institutions, almost 5,000. In Alabama, there's nearly 100 physical campus sites and 500, counting online, degree options. We don't need more education. We are the most educated people in history. I love what C.S. Lewis says. C.S. Lewis said years ago, and I quote, "Education without values, as useful as it is, seems rather to make man a more clever devil." Think about that. That's just education. That's why we use that phrase, higher education for a higher purpose. Okay? If we agree we need it, question 2 then is important. What are the characteristics of a Christ-centered university? What are the characteristics? By the way, when we use that phrase Christ-centered, that's on purpose. We're not saying church-related. We're not saying denominationally affiliated. We're saying Christ-centered. That is not to disparage the Baptists. The Baptists, through their cooperative program, contribute 10% of our budget. Be thankful for the Baptists. We will never disparage the Southern Baptists, our state Baptists, but the phrase I like to use is Christ-centered. Well, what are those characteristics then? The first one, we've got a structure that recognizes that Christ is the foundation on which education's built. This is basic stuff. We are an academic institution. Long as I'm here, that's our stress. We're an academic institution. Everything we do supports the classroom. But there's a foundation. On our seal, our official seal, we've got the words, since 1961, by the way, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. It's the foundation, the beginning of wisdom. This extends to all parts of this university. From the classroom to the offices to the ball fields, that extends across this university. We want students to see this Christ-centered worldview. Notice I said see, not just what we say, but what we do. That's the basic foundation. There's a second characteristic, though. We've got a faculty that integrates faith and learning. Now, this does not mean that we teach Christian chemistry, but we do teach that God created the world and all that's in it. We don't teach Christian math. Although I contend there is no more fervent prayer on this campus than halfway through one of Troy's calculus tests. But we don't teach Christian math, okay? There's 2 extremes, by the way. When you talk about integration of this worldview, there's 2 extremes. On one extreme, it's an opening prayer, so I check off the box, okay? On the other extreme, it's an in-your-face evangelism. Those are the extremes. I love a story that Dr. Weaver told way back in the 70s. One day in chapel, we had an issue with not many, but maybe 5 or 6 religion students. They were called religion students back then. These guys, we called the Pharisees because they were taking it way too, I'll be nice, they were taking it way too seriously. This is the 1970s, the days of leisure suits, by the way. They're wearing coats and ties to school, okay? They carry Bibles that look like grandma's coffee table family Bible to class. It was almost like, look at me, I'm a religious person. Well, Dr. Weaver caught wind of this, so in chapel one day, he talked about the true humility of serving Christ. He said something I'll never forget. He said, it's not so important to me that everybody says, or that I tell everybody what a great Christian I am. That's not important. He says, to me, what's important is if somebody doesn't know me and they're told I'm a Christian, they're not surprised. I think that's wise. That's what it means, I think, to live this. It's something we live. It's not just something we talk about. My favorite, I guess, old-time baseball player was Ted Williams. Some would say he was the greatest hitter of all time. He was also perhaps the worst coach of all time. He tried to coach hitting and just couldn't do it. I think the main thing was he was frustrated because his students could not hit like he could. Well, of course not. He's in a classroom one day by the ball field with chalk and on the blackboard trying to explain how to hit. He's doing grip and stance, all this kind of stuff. He got so frustrated, he knocked the board over, said, just watch me do it, and went outside and started doing it. That's what it means, I think, to display this Christian integration between faith and our teaching. Now, the third one's big, the third characteristic. We recognize there's a truth which must be pursued. Notice, by the way, I didn't say knowledge, which is great in itself. But there's a difference between truth and knowledge. What's the difference? Simple. Truth never changes. Knowledge does. We're not, by the way, as faculty, trying to transfer a body of knowledge. Although that sounds great. Being on SACS teams a lot, on visit teams, I read a bunch of mission statements. You'll often see stuff like, our graduates will master a certain body of knowledge. When I see that, I kind of smile. You can't do it. There's two problems with that statement. It sounds good, but there's two problems. First of all, you can't do it. Research tells us knowledge doubles every 8 years. Probably quicker now, but knowledge doubles every 8 years. The technology we teach a freshman is obsolete when they graduate. Knowledge will change. Truth never does. If a student, by the way, walks across the graduation stage, if that kid thinks, I know it all, we have failed that student. If they leave this university thinking, I've got all the answers, we have failed. Socrates said, the only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. That's good. The second problem, if you could do it, would you want to do it? This is deeper. There's a legend, probably not true, but it's a good story anyway. It's a legend about Alexander the Great. I love this story. Legend has it, one day, he's on a battlefield with a map spread out. And one of his lieutenants notices he's weeping, which seems kind of odd. Tears on the great general's face. He kind of gingerly walks up. What's wrong? Alexander shows the map and said, look at this. Well, the map showed the entire district that they're trying to fight, and there's X's all over the map. The lieutenant says, what's wrong? Alexander says those X's represent every piece of this map that we've conquered. Well, there's tons of X's. What's wrong? Alexander said there's no more worlds left to conquer. Think about that. If we could master knowledge, would you want to? Our goal here is to equip and motivate students to seek the truth. If we can teach students what questions to ask, we've done a good day's work. I invoked Socrates, another ancient philosopher, Ted Mashburn. Ted says, and I like this, he's got a motto that says, question me this answer. Catch that? Question me this answer. If we can teach kids to question and ask what questions to ask, we've done a good job. We recognize that truth comes from God. We equip students to seek that truth. Now, we've asked, is there a need for this? I say yes. We've asked, what are the characteristics? Here comes the most important part. This, I think, is our big thought for the day. How will being a Christ-centered university make us unique? This is huge. I believe there's two or three things. First of all, it will change how we relate to each other. This is so big. We will focus on the mission. You know, if we do that, this eliminates a whole lot of pettiness, of silos, of bickering. If we focus on the mission, we relate to each other in a different way. It will also, by the way, bring joy to the mission. This is so important. You know, I am probably one of the luckiest people alive. For the last 41 years, I have convinced somebody to pay me for doing something I love to do for the last 41 years. The mission's a joy. A side note, by the way, I'm at the stage of life, I'm 61 years old, I'm at the stage of life where I've got very little patience for unhappy people, okay? We are going to have in this university two types of employees, happy and former, okay? That scared a few folks, sorry. Okay. Number two, it won't just change how we relate to each other. Number two, it will change how we relate to this community. I love the idea of world missions. Doug and the gang, I love that idea. But we're 10 miles away from one of the poorest parts of America. It'll change the way we think of community. We will look for things to work on. We'll look for opportunities. I think it'll change our focus. Number three is the most important. This is the big one. It will change the way we relate to students. This one's going to be tough. About 10 days ago, for the first time ever in my life, hopefully the last time, I went to 2 funerals on the same day, okay? Both of those were university related, but they're very different. The first was a 91-year-old man who worked here 30-something years, was out working all of us at age 85 when he retired, Mr. Bob. You know Mr. Bob, okay? In the afternoon, Janelle, my good friend, 40 years old, left us way too soon. At both funerals, I talked to people, and in both cases, they said, these people influenced me. They changed my life. You know, not one of those people that I talked to said, Janelle's especially, a lot of you guys were there at Janelle's funeral. There were 5 students who one by one spoke a word about Janelle. Not one of those kids said, she showed us the best technology. They didn't say, man, we had great, which we do, but they didn't say, we have great facilities. You know what they said? They said, she took time to mentor me. She gave me a hug. And Mr. Bob, by the way, I talked to maintenance guys. They're not usually touchy-feely, but one of them in tears said, that old man changed my life. In both cases, it showed how we can touch people, how we can mentor people. You've all got stories. Kids tell me all the time. I was at a conference in Orange Beach a month ago, set by a guy from North Alabama. He said, and there she is, he said, Jane Bird changed my life. Folks, those stories are all over the place. I've got my own story. I've told before, but I'll do it again. This goes back to 1977. I was a 19-year-old, long hair, part in the middle sophomore at Mobile College. I was taking my very first teacher education course. It was TE 201 Foundations. The instructor was a gray-haired lady about this big, Dr. Hazel Peterson. Yes, you're scared. I was scared of that woman. I heard a gasp. I was scared of her because she was feared. She, by the way, was what you now call a dean, back then division heads. She taught that course on purpose because she said it's my job to weed out the deplorables who don't need to represent us in the school system, okay? Now, this will surprise a few of you that have known me a long time. I've not always been dignified and refined, okay? There was a time back, I was an amateur comedian, and that's the way it kind of was in 1977. I was enjoying school. To make it worse, I had just started dating a beautiful 17-year-old blonde high school senior, 2 years my junior. I didn't have a chance of studying, okay? No chance. So it's midterm. I've got a C, and proud of it. Dr. Peterson, one day in class said, Lonnie, stop by my office, okay? As I'm walking toward her office, I'm thinking, what's my next career move? It's not going to be teaching. What is my next career move? She sat me down in her office, and she said to me, she said, Lonnie, you're not applying yourself. You're not applying yourself in this class. If I weren't so scared, I'd have said, duh. I knew that, okay? But she said to me, you've got a spark. I have watched you interact with people. I've watched you do presentations. You can do this. You can be a teacher. That conversation, I would not be here today were it not for that conversation. Why do I say that? That's what we do. By the way, not just faculty. Faculty, I don't care who you are in this room, faculty, staff, we influence people. We mentor people. By word of update, Dr. Pearson today, she's 95 years old. She's watching live right now. 95, I'm still scared. I'm standing up straight with good grammar because she will do a Facebook post and say you were slouching, but I'm still scared of her. She's 95 years old watching us live right now. By the way, more updates. The 17-year-old blonde, this Thursday I'm married to, 39 years. She's back in the back too, so. Both of those worked out pretty well. The point is simple. We have got some great stuff on this campus. We've got great technology, great facilities, what I call stuff. We will never outstuff a South Alabama. We ain't got to. We can win the mentoring battle every day. In a Christ-centered university, we can win that battle. We can pour ourselves into the students. I guarantee you one day, hopefully a long time, at our wake, kids won't say they had great PowerPoints. Kids will say they took time to invest in me. That's what we do. Let me wrap up pretty quick. I talked to the board about 2 weeks ago. In my opening remarks, I said, look guys, since I've been doing this job for the last 2 months, 2 of my core beliefs have been greatly strengthened. My first core belief is that we have got in this room the best people anywhere that I could work with. I believe that. We have gone through some confusion, some chaos, some ups and downs, but you guys never got distracted. You never took your eyes off the mission. All you did was work harder. You focused on kids. You focused on the mission. That's incredible. My second core belief is that God is faithful. We have seen some strange things. By the way, part of Fred's title as interim president emeritus, he gets free coffee for life, okay? And he's actually used that a few times. We're in the office one day, and he said that there have been so many things that have happened. If we wrote a book, folks would not believe it. There have been so many things that I could tell you stories of things this summer that have happened. God has been faithful. That's a core belief. I've seen that this summer, I think, in a brand new way. My favorite song, by the way, is the hymn, Great Is Thy Faithfulness. I love the line in the chorus. The line that says morning by morning, it's based on scripture, it says morning by morning, new mercies I see. We have lived out that song at this university. Since 1961, we have lived out that song. God has been faithful to this university. I've asked, by the way, 2 of my favorite folks in the world to sing this song for us, then I'll close.
Great is thy faithfulness, O God, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness. Summer and winter, and springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me.
Pardon for sin and a peace that endureth, thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all mine with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see, and all I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me.
Folks, forget me. That's the kind of kids we turn out at this university right there. That's a testimony. Let me close. I have never been more excited to be a part of this university. We have got some exciting times ahead. The journey we're on, I'll be transparent. It might not be a smooth journey every day. It might not be a straight line. Might be some bumps, but it's a journey we're going to take together. One last story back from the past here. Going back to teaching. My very first year of teaching was 1979. I started in September. Back then you would start after Labor Day, so the Tuesday after Labor Day, I started my first class. You know, the first day of school is, the first opening of school is always exciting, always adventurous. There's always bumps. If you've been here a long time in Mobile, if you're old enough, you remember that September of '79, I had taught 1 week, 4 days, and Hurricane Frederick hit, the most devastating storm in this area ever in Mobile history. So our school is shut down for 2 or 3 weeks, just chaotic. That Sunday, at my church. We had no power for 2 weeks. In my church that Sunday, the pastor, with windows open, no electricity, talked about, he used Luke chapter 8, and he talked about the time the disciples were in the boat with Jesus. The storm came, they panicked, but Jesus was there the entire time. I thought about that this week. We're kind of on a journey like that, but I go back to those core beliefs. There is no group with whom I'd rather share a boat than the folks in this room. I also believe he's in the boat, and that's a great place to be. This is going to be an exciting year. Our greatest days are ahead. I am honored. I'm undeserving. I'm privileged to lead this school right now. Real quick for a benediction. May we always be thankful for God's great faithfulness. May God show us new mercies every day. May we always be true to the mission. And may God continue to bless the University of Mobile. Thank you very much.